Okay guys, now it's time for some real-life networking using Python. In this second application, we are really beginning to build something that could prove to be very useful in any networking environment. This application will use SSH to connect to the routers from the network we already built in the GNS3 section and send the commands we defined inside the file to each router. And that's not all. For greater modularity, the application will collect the management IP addresses of the routers from a dedicated file and log in to the devices using credentials stored in another file. Furthermore, this Python application will verify if each of these three files exist in our current directory, and it will check the IP connectivity to each router via ICMP. The last thing I'll tell you about this application before I show it to you is that it will send the configuration commands to all the routers simultaneously, not one by one, using threading. Without further ado, let me show you the files first. So let me get into the virtual machine. Let's see cat sship.txt. This is the file containing the IP addresses of the routers in the network. Now cat ssh userpass.txt. This is the one storing the username and password separated by a comma. And finally we have the file that holds the commands to be sent to each router, and that is ssh_commands.txt. So you can see that we configure the TechAx server host IP and three test usernames and their corresponding passwords. You can enter any command you want, of course. One more thing, let me show you that I don't have these settings already on my routers in case you don't trust me. So let's go on R1 for example and do a show TechAx. Okay, so no configuration here. Also, let me try a show run and let's include the lines that have username within them. Okay, so we have just the default username and password that we defined at the beginning of the course. Now let's try the same on R3. So show TechAx, nothing, and show run, include username. Okay, nice. Now it's time for testing. Let's run the application. So Python sshconfig.py. First, the program asks for the file storing the IP addresses, so ssh.ip_ip.txt. Notice that it checks the connectivity to each of them and issues a message at the end. Now let's enter the credentials file, so ssh_userpass.txt. So the file exists and has been validated, as you can see here. Finally, we should enter the file having the commands we want to send. So ssh_commands.txt. And now wait for a few seconds. And it seems it has been successfully executed. Now let's check the routers. Let's check R3. Also notice the log message configured from console by TOPy on VTY0. Okay, so let's do a show TechAx. Okay, now we have the TechAx server host IP configured. Also, the usernames. You can see three additional usernames, the ones in the command file. Great. Let's also check this on R1. You can see the log message, the same log message again. Show TechAx. Okay, and show run include username. Okay, great. I will provide the entire code of this application a bit later in this section. I will also add the entire code of an application that does the exact same thing but using Telnet. The only differences within the code are the telnet lib module instead of paramiko, and the fact that the username and password are explicitly defined inside the file. Of course, you can modify this behavior by making the program get these parameters either from user input or from an external file you specify. For now, we are going to discuss the SSH application.